And I'll choose the dogs. Gonna choose the dogs. Gonna choose the kids. Gonna choose the dogs.
Hello and welcome to Happily Ever Reality. Today we are talking about Becoming Sister Wives, the story of an unconventional marriage. And that is the book that was written by Cody, Mary, Janelle, Christine, and Robin Brown back in 2012. So let's go ahead and get started. We are now in part 3 of the book, which is titled Family, and we are on chapter 10, which is written by Janelle. I will tell you before I get started that this video is probably going to be a bit shorter than the other videos I've made about this book because this chapter was a shorter chapter, so there's just not as much to talk about. Janelle starts out her chapter by saying it takes a village to raise a child, and she has her village. That is her sister wives and her husband. She says there's a lot of positive things that come from people with different personalities raising their children together. So she starts out talking about the positive stuff, but she quickly talks about how sometimes there is conflict. Now you have to remember that Janelle was the first one to have a child, and at that point Cody was married to Mary, Janelle, and Christine. So Logan was born, and he was sort of the center of attention. You know, he had 3 mothers and a father, and it was just him at that time. And Janelle says he was very adventurous. He was the type of kid that wanted to get into things, and he wanted to climb on the furniture. And she was okay with that. Janelle admits that she is very permissive, and she was okay with him doing those things as long as he wasn't putting himself in harm's way. But she says that not everyone else agreed. Not everyone else was okay with climbing on the furniture. And she doesn't actually say that it's Mary, but I think it's pretty clear that's who it was. And I do want to point out that Mary admits this in her chapter. She says she doesn't like roughhousing on her furniture. She talks about it quite a bit. So this isn't a situation where I think Janelle is saying something bad about Mary. I think Mary is very aware of what she wants her home to be like. And Janelle says that that is okay because each wife is allowed to parent and run their own household the way they want to. The only thing that is important to them is that when their children go over to another household, that they are obedient to those rules and that mother. So if they all want to go to Mary's, that's fine, but they're not going to climb all over the furniture and they're expected to follow her rules. If they're over at Christine's house or Janelle's house, it's okay to be a little bit more rough because the mothers are more permissive. So they are okay with all of those differences. They just want their children to be respectful and obedient to all of the parents in the family. Janelle says that it's okay for them to run their households differently, but it's really important that they all agree on certain universal things. And one of the things that they agree on is that the children cannot be disrespectful. And if they are disrespectful and it requires more than a scolding as a punishment, it is expected that the child's biological parent handles the discipline. So if it's beyond a scolding, it should be done by a biological parent. And I think that makes all sort of sense for this family. We've already heard that there's conflict when it comes to how to discipline the kids. That's already been brought up in the book. And I'm sure certain events led to them reaching this agreement. And I think this is probably one of the better decisions the family has made. Anyone punishing someone else's child can become an issue if you don't 100% understand and trust that person's judgment. So I think this is something that probably was a wise choice for them. Janelle also continues to talk about some more of the positive things, like she mentions how they all come together to get things done when they need to, and all of the personalities coming together to raise the kids has been really beneficial for them. But she does point out that there is a downside for the children themselves. She says it's hard for them to get away with things because there's so many eyes and ears that are watching them and listening to what they're saying. So it's just hard for the kids to get away with things when there's that many adults that are parenting them. The one thing that has been really clear to me as I've been reading this book is that this family has changed a lot, and change is something that is always happening for them, whether it's moving, living together, living apart, who's taking care of the kids. There's a lot of things that change within this family, and Janelle brings that up when it comes to parenting. She says that it was easier for them to all parent together when the kids were actually kids, like little children. But as they became teenagers, it got to be more difficult. And she says that she tries to stay out of disciplining the other mother's children because she says each mom has a different set of rules about things like phones, curfews, and television, and that each mother has a different relationship with their teenager. So she just wants to stay out of disciplining them because things are just way more complex. Now, even though she avoids disciplining other people's children as much as possible, she does say that they will all discipline each other's children if there is blatant disrespect or lying. She says in those situations, it doesn't matter who the child is or what adult is there. If some sort of discipline is needed, it will happen. Janelle also says that she is willing to help enforce the rules that another mother has created for their own children. She calls this being a secondary enforcer. So there are some times where Janelle will step in and discipline someone else's kids if she thinks it is necessary. When Janelle thinks about her own parenting and the parenting of the other mothers in Cody, she says that she is a softie. Janelle prefers discussing things with her kids over punishing them. She says this goes back to being a non-confrontational person. She acknowledges that Cody, Christine, and Mary are all better at carrying out punishments and dealing with bad behavior. She credits them for providing a structured environment for her children and really believes that it took all of them to raise such a good group of kids. Janelle switches over from talking about discipline and parenting to talking about how they all come together to do what needs to be done. And she says that there was a time where they were living together in that house in Utah and managing their households separately. But Christine and Janelle would often come together to do things that worked best for their households. So they would help each other run errands and make meals. She also says during this part of the book that her children love to eat at other mothers' households. She says her kids will go to the other households and look in their fridge and cupboards and see what's in there. She says it's just a universal truth that someone else's food is always more interesting. I mentioned this in Mary's chapter, and I'm going to mention it again here. We all know that Robin had some issues with the kids eating at her house. I'm not going to go into it further right now, but I can't help but think this is why it's being brought up the way it is for Janelle. So if the kids are free to go over and look in the fridge and get some food, it's clear that the kids are very comfortable going to the other homes in this family, like the other mothers' houses. The kids go over there and spend time and hang out, and they're free to come and go as they want. And at the time of writing this book, Janelle says that the little girls seem to prefer to be at Robin's house, and the older kids like to come to her house because she has a pool. And she says that Christine's house is very popular during the school year because the kids are able to hang out with each other and they're able to meet up with the other kids in the neighborhood. So the kids are free to come and go in the houses, at least at the time of writing this book. I feel like that is not the way it is anymore. But at the time of writing this book, that was how it was supposed to go. Janelle also talks about how the kids will form attachments with other mothers. She says sometimes it's permanent and sometimes it's temporary. And we've seen that on the show. In Mary's chapter, it was brought up that Isabel likes to go and spend time with Mary. That was something we saw in the early seasons of Sister Wives. And it's true. It seems like sometimes the kids will gravitate to a certain parent for a while. And Janelle's example of this in her chapter is that Hunter really gravitates toward Christine. It's important to remember that when this book was written, a lot of the kids were in their teenage years. So that is brought up at this part of the book. She says that she's really grateful that she has the other sister wives and Cody there to help her parent during the adolescent years. You have to remember that, there's a big group of teenagers and young adults in this family at the same time. The one thing that's important to her when it comes to raising teenagers is that it's important that they don't try to grow up and be serious too quickly. And when she says serious, she's talking about being too serious in relationships. She wants them to just take things slow. And that is something that all of the adults agree on, so they sort of back each other up when it comes to dealing with the teenagers and trying to get them to slow down and not rush into things. Janelle says it doesn't matter what her relationship is like with the other sister wives. When it comes to parenting, the support network she has is unbeatable. The only complaint she has is that she wishes they could spend more time together as a family. In Mary's last chapter, which was in the family part of the book, so in the last video I did, I talked about a story that Mary mentions. She says that there was a choir show that Leon was in, and she wished more people in the family could go, but the only person that went was Cody. So she sort of ends her chapter talking about that. And Janelle also ends her chapter talking about the same thing. She says she wishes that she could attend more school functions for the kids, but she can't always get around to getting to more of them. The approach to this is that the family will divide and conquer, that it would be difficult for every mother to attend every event, but they try to make sure that at least a few family members are present at everything. So we have Mary saying only Cody came to the choir show, but then Janelle saying they really do try to make sure more people are there. So this is one of those things where I wonder if this is brought up because it just happened recently, like recent as in when they were writing the book. Mary is upset about it. There's been some sort of issue, and now they're all bringing this up in the book. I wonder if there's just more to it. And I don't remember this being brought up on the show. So if anyone remembers the choir show incident, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. Maybe I'm just forgetting it. But I feel like there might have been some sort of issue there. Now, she does mention that things have changed for them because now they're on this show and they're living their lives out in the open, and they're no longer hiding their plural lifestyle. So they are able to attend more events because they don't have to answer questions and they don't feel like they're under a lot of scrutiny the way they were in the past. So she says it's more comfortable to attend school functions and events as a family. So that is it for this chapter. It's definitely shorter than the other ones, and really there was nothing there that surprised me. But this is what I sort of expect. We're at the end of the book, or at least we're going toward the end of the book. There's just not a lot there. The only thing I will say is when I'm reading this and I know what I know now about the family, there's just times I wonder, why was that brought up? Like Mary mentions how she went to the choir show and Cody was the only one that came. And then Janelle mentions that they try to divide and conquer. It makes me wonder how much conflict the family had over this incident. You know, how upset did Mary get that other people couldn't attend? It sort of feels, I don't know. I just wonder if some of the stuff in the book is their way of being passive aggressive about certain things. I don't know. It's just reading it now and reading it in the past. It's just two different experiences. But you guys can let me know down in the comments what you think about this chapter. Did I leave anything out that you thought was super important? Go ahead and let me know down below. If you haven't already, I hope you will click like and subscribe. We are going to be reading Christine's chapter next about family.